gracias por su asistencia el día de hoy. Hoy vamos a continuar revisando, por favor. Vamos a continuar revisando con el doctor Brian Housand el modelo de enriquecimiento para toda la escuela, que es, como ustedes saben, el modelo que vamos a utilizar en la implementación de talleres. Hoy vamos a revisar también los 3 tipos de enriquecimiento. Profesores, por favor. Vamos a revisar los 3 tipos de enriquecimiento, tanto el tipo 1, aquellas actividades que son más exploratorias, el tipo 2, que es cuando yo ya comienzo a desarrollar habilidades en mis estudiantes, y finalmente el tipo 3, cuando estos estudiantes ya, en base a sus intereses, comienzan a desarrollar proyectos también de tipo más personal. Entonces hoy vamos a revisar todo eso. Vamos a trabajar hasta las 11, posteriormente el café y luego continuamos con la segunda parte. Los dejo con el doctor Housand. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Buenos dias. Good morning. Welcome to day 2. Thank you for joining on this second day. Yesterday, just to recap, we spent a lot of time talking about focusing on the gifted students that you might be working with. Really looking at what Renzulli classified as his 3-ring conception of gifted behaviors, looking at the 3 factors of above average ability, creativity, task commitment, and looking at where all 3 of those factors come together to interact and form these gifted behaviors. Today, we're going to spend all of our time digging into sort of the heart of what we do with those gifted students and ways that we can better develop those gifted behaviors using the school-wide enrichment model, which was developed by Renzulli and his partner and wife, Sally Reis. At the end of yesterday, we also touched on the 3 overarching goals of what SEM hopes to accomplish. Here, what we're going to spend our time this morning and this afternoon focusing on are this goal number 1, ways that we can expose all students to selective enrichment activities and strategies that promote their cognitive development. To give you an overview of today, we're starting this morning at 9. They have changed our break time to 11, so we will go from now until 11, where we'll take our 30-minute break. And then we'll come back at 11:30 a.m., not p.m. So let me change that there really quick. I don't think that anyone wants to come back here at 11:30 p.m. tonight. And then we will end at 2. And does this work better for everyone? So I also mentioned that the resources, many of the things that we've talked about as well as additional resources will be available at this website. I will try and make sure that that is updated to include everything by the end of today. So in talking with Renzulli about sort of how he feels about the SEM, he often describes the enrichment triad and the 3-ring conception really as this way of organizing what he considers to be common sense in teaching. And so as he was thinking about what we can do for our gifted students and ways that we can help better to develop their gifted behaviors, he designed what is known as the enrichment triad. This is really the heart of what the school-wide enrichment model is, and it's comprised of 3 different types of teaching and learning. So today we're going to go through each of these 3 types, see what they might look like within your learning environment, and talk about ways that you can develop these. So we'll start with type 1. These are the general exploratory activities, and these are activities which are meant for the broadest audience of students. These are things that are based upon the student's interests, things that they already have, as well as interests that you might help develop within them. In type 2, these are the methodological or training skills, kind of the how-to. So as you're learning to become a researcher, or as you're learning to work with robotics or computers, then there are certain skills which you will need in order to accomplish the task which you are given. The third part are the type 3 activities. These are what are referred to as independent or small group investigations, our products, and our performances. This is where ultimately your students will be spending perhaps most of their individual work time or small group time, but it is something that they have to build up to. Most students would not just immediately jump into a type 3, but instead we need to pique their curiosity and their interest with lots of type 1s so that they will work up to conducting those independent or small group investigations. So let's talk about type 1. These, as I said, are intended for the greatest number of students, and they should be aligned with things that they are interested in. These are things that are not necessarily part of your regular curriculum or standards, but these are things that can come out from the outside, things that take place beyond the school walls or the school day. I want us to think about this quote from Norman Ing, who said, "Think of yourself less as a teacher and more as a designer of meaningful experiences." As we're thinking about creating type 1 experiences, they should be just that. They should be this invitation to another world. They should be this invitation to your students to be transported to curriculum and information that they are not necessarily seeing in their everyday lives. It should be something that is new and out of the ordinary, and something that is going to be curious and inspire them to want to do more. In order to think about what a type 1 experience is, I want to invite you to come with me on a journey. Now, Renzulli developed the enrichment triad originally in the year 1977. And I want you to think about the year that was. In 1977, I was a very young boy. I was 6 years old at that time. And in 1977, there is a movie which has become very, very special to me that was released that year. It was a little film called Star Wars. I can remember as that young boy seeing ads in the newspapers and looking at commercials on television advertising this movie that was coming. And I begged my parents. I said, more than anything else in the whole world, I need to go and see this film. I don't know what it's going to be about, but I know that it is going to be awesome. And so I remember going to the theater to see this. This is probably one of the first movies that I remember seeing in the theater. And I can remember that feeling of sitting in that movie seat and how the floor was even slightly sticky. And I remember sitting there and staring up at this big screen and seeing that sort of initial logo come up, and I was immediately transformed. I saw things that I had never seen before. I saw space travel. I saw droids. I saw Jedi Knights. I was learning about this thing called the Force, and I really wanted to be a part of that. It was in 1977 that really my fascination with the future and with space travel developed. It was also in 1977 that my parents took me for the first time on our first family trip to Walt Disney World. Now, back in that time, in 1977, we didn't have this amazing thing called the internet. And so if you wanted information about a trip that you might be planning, you had to write away. You had to send off for information in the mail. And so my mom mailed off for information and guidebooks about Walt Disney World. And as I saw and looked at this book for what it was that I was going to see, I was immediately fascinated with the idea that I could go to this world of tomorrow. And more than anything else that I wanted to see, because of my love for Star Wars, is that I wanted to see and experience Space Mountain. Now, Space Mountain is essentially a roller coaster, except it takes you on this rocket ride into space. The ride itself, for those of you who have not experienced it, is almost completely dark. There are stars or lights which are projected on the inside of this building where the roller coaster is. When I got there and experienced Space Mountain for the first time, I was horrified in the beginning. I was just both very excited and fearful at exactly the same time. But I can remember sitting in that rocket seat and seeing sort of this mountain as we were walking up to see what it looked like. Every time I walk into Walt Disney World at this point, even as an adult, and I enter into Tomorrowland and I see Space Mountain, I still feel like that same 6-year-old boy. So there's this experience, this emotional connection. And sitting in the rocket seat, you have this sort of launching tube that you go through, and it is absolutely a magical, magical experience. It was a few years ago as an adult that I had the opportunity to visit Disney World and tour some of the Disney Youth Program field trip opportunities that they have. This came with because of a partnership with the National Association for Gifted Children. This is a national professional organization within the U.S. And so NAGC and the Disney Youth Programs have a partnership together to promote some of these programs. So my wife and I got the chance to go and tour the youth programs at the Magic Kingdom in Florida. As I was looking through the brochure and looking at the offerings that were taking place online, more than anything else, I knew the one thing that I had to see was the one that was about roller coaster design and specifically about Space Mountain. And so we went and we were there with a group of students who were also going through this experience. And as a part of this, the students were learning how roller coasters worked. They learned you have to have this potential energy, and then the roller coaster goes down because of gravity, and that's how the speed and the force and the momentum occur. So they were learning a lot about the physics of roller coasters, and they were designing and building their own roller coaster. But it wouldn't have been just enough to be at Disney World and build a model roller coaster. They needed to experience it firsthand. Now, as a part of this, these activities with the Disney Youth Programs, they allow the students to do something that no other guest gets to do. So as part of this, the students and my wife and I and the facilitators all got to go and experience Space Mountain with the lights on. So instead of being in space, suddenly we were seeing the actual roller coaster. When you're riding Space Mountain, you can't see the track because you're almost in total darkness. So as we were going through this, I was like, wow, this roller coaster is incredibly ugly. It looks very dirty. It's not magical at all. And after we completed the ride and we got off the ride and we were in the exit area, we all gathered around and started debriefing and talking about our experience. What the facilitator asked the students were the questions about the roller coaster design. They asked them how tall did they think that the biggest hill was or the biggest drop. It turns out that the biggest drop is only about this high from here to the floor. Yet because you're in the dark and you can't see where it is that you're going and you are feeling like you're in space, it feels much, much bigger. They also asked how fast it goes. It turns out that it goes very, very slow for a roller coaster. When we were talking about this and after the experience, we all communicated that we were incredibly disappointed with seeing Space Mountain with the lights on. The teachers or the facilitators asked the students how we could make Space Mountain better, how we could make it, instead of just a ride, how we could make it an attraction, an experience. And one very precocious young man blurted out, "You could turn the lights out." And so they started asking him more about that. They were like, "Well, tell us more. What do you mean you could turn the lights out? Would that be enough?" And all of the students agreed that the thing that they loved most about Space Mountain wasn't that it was a roller coaster, but it was that they got to go and experience, even for that brief moment, and imagine what it might be like to be in space. Because Disney has realized that when we place things within a story or within a situation, that we can make it magical and meaningful. Because ultimately, what we remember are our experiences. Oftentimes in school, what we experience is just the delivery of knowledge. We try to take these isolated pieces of information, facts, figures, dates, people, and history, and we present them as these isolated pieces of information that we need to memorize. What a type 1 is asking you to do is to not just present the knowledge as these separate pieces, but to look for ways that we can create more of an experience. Something that's more like Space Mountain. Something that's more like going to see Star Wars for the first time. Something that you're going to have an emotional response to. Something that's going to be out of the ordinary and that's going to be more magical. So when we think about developing type 1s from a traditional standpoint, these are many of the types of activities that Renzulli and Reis originally envisioned and continue to add to over the years. We can look for any of the number of these things. For example, you might be teaching a unit of instruction, and you want to bring a guest speaker in who is an expert in the area. That is a great way for you to significantly enhance the amount of information that you have. There are a great number of people who might want to come into your classroom and talk with your students about the things that they're working on. This could be someone who comes in, an actual person into the classroom, or it could be someone that you might have Skype in, so that you could have somebody from the university or another professional or scientist or engineer that then might serve as a guest speaker. You could have them participate in some type of demonstration. You could have a panel of experts or guest speakers come in and debate or discuss the topics of things that they're working on. YouTube offers a great number of fantastic experiences or content that could be used as a type 1 experience. YouTube allows us to learn almost anything it is that we want to learn. It used to be that when you would try and figure out how to do something, that you would have to read an instruction manual. But now, oftentimes when I am faced with a problem or I need to fix something in the house, then I will go and watch a series of YouTube videos, and I have a much better understanding of what it is that I need to do in order to be able to solve that problem. We can look for television series or documentaries. We might take our students on a virtual field trip where if we can't actually take them to a location, then we can show them what it might look like using Google Earth or looking at images or videos of that place. We might share with them articles that we find online or looking at some types of games or simulations that they can play. If we have the opportunity to take them to actual places, whether that's a museum or on some type of field trip, those type 1 experiences are going to be much, much more memorable for them. because they're seeing something that is different than what it is that they are seeing on an everyday basis. So these are some suggestions of things that we might include within a Type 1 experience. Again, these should be based upon the student's interest, and a Type 1 experience should really feel different than what regular school might feel like. It needs to feel a little bit more like Space Mountain and less like a roller coaster. And it should ultimately be something of an event. So as we're looking at the types of things that we see here, I want you to take a moment and talk with your friends and neighbors about what types of things do you think would make a good Type 1 experience for your students, and where could you go about finding those resources? What?
Do you need something?
I'm good. And if we will come back together in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right, and where is the microphone? So I want to hear from you your initial thinking about some of the things that might work as a Type 1 experience that you could use within your classroom. Yeah.
¿Puede ser algo que ya se hizo en la escuela? En el género lírico, el año pasado, con los octavos años, salimos al desierto florido de Antofagasta, que está ubicado en un cerro que se llama Chanida, que está para el lado norte. Nos llevaron unos buses, fue algo bien planificado con el equipo de gestión de la escuela, y subimos, pasamos por unos corrales de chanchos, más arriba una estación que se lanzaban parapentes, y llegamos nunca al final porque siempre había más cerros, pero fue un lugar que estaba entre dos cerros y lleno de flores de todos colores, muy lindo, bichitos, arañas rojas, y los niños, aparte de mirar el paisaje, se pusieron a explorar los bichos. Y habían pisadas de caballos, como que gente pasaba por ahí en caballo, recorría el lugar. Y fue mágico, fue muy lindo para mí, para las asistentes que iban conmigo y los niños. Nos costó mucho irnos. La idea, el objetivo de eso era que ellos, a través de la imagen, escribieran poesía. Y ellos relacionaron su vida cotidiana y la imagen que vieron, el impacto que les causó ese lugar en un desierto que tenemos nosotros al 100%. Y tuvimos que publicar las poesías en unas pizarras que tenemos en la escuela para que las vieran, porque fue algo tan bonito que resultó de eso, que siempre estamos pensando volver a ir este año. Ya lo tenemos como programado para que este octavo nuevo tenga la misma experiencia.
Very nice. It sounds like a very magical experience. And it's the type of thing that takes us out of our everyday, and takes us away from our screens, where our kids spend much of their time. And so we have to help them see that there is not only a world in here, but also that there is a world out there, which is even more magical and meaningful. And those types of field trip experiences can be transformational, where you come back and you are not the same person that you were when you went there for the first time. Let's hear a few other ideas of things that you have done or things that you would like to do within your classroom.
Buenos días. Bueno, hace un par de años atrás en la escuela donde trabajamos, tuvimos la visita de un escritor. Justo los niños en tercero y cuarto básico leen mucho lo que es literatura de Mauricio Paredes. Y justamente él fue a nuestro establecimiento y les relató la experiencia, les contó cómo realizar un libro, en dónde se basa, la imaginación que usa, y los niños relacionaron la escritura con la persona. Y se dieron cuenta que incluso, más que darse cuenta, lo inspiraron a crear sus propios cuentos infantiles, que después ellos mismos se intercambiaron sus cuentos y lo hicieron muy significativo. Y eso.
Yes, absolutely. I think when our students can make that personal connection to see that there is this famous author who went to school in the same school that we go to, it helps them to see that anything is possible. As we talked about yesterday with having that childlike mind, it helps to connect that childlike wonder with sort of these possibilities of what they can achieve when they become an adult. Muy bien. Sure. A couple of others.
Buenos días. Nuestra escuela organizó el año pasado una experiencia bien entretenida para los niños. Los llevó a un lugar de Antofagasta que era la comunidad GEN, que es un centro que hace experiencias con ecológico, claro, también, y cuida el medio ambiente, todo eso, pero está alejado de la ciudad. Ellos ocupan la niebla como para capturar el agua, y con eso ellos trabajan en sus plantaciones que tienen allá. Plantan, ¿cómo se llama? Lechugas, acelga, todas esas cositas. Pero ellos se unieron en los cursos 7º y 8º con sus profesores y fueron a hacer una clase allá, ¿ya? Entonces, ciencia, podían ver a través de la ciencia, las plantas, todo eso. Usaron la matemática, educación física, las artes. O sea, fueron todos los profesores junto con ese grupo de niños y trabajaron en ese lugar, al aire libre. Y fue muy bonito, para ellos muy bonito. Los niños quedaron felices. Eso.
Very nice.
Bueno, buenos días, hago ciencia natural en el 2º ciclo y también estoy a cargo de la Academia de Ciencias del colegio. Y siempre trato de que mis niños de ciencias tengan experiencia fuera de la escuela. Y bueno, recuerdo este año una muy significativa que fueron mis números de la academia y saqué, aparte que alumnos de los distintos cursos que hago, que yo sabía que les gustaban las ciencias, los saqué de diferentes cursos que hacía asignatura. Y vinimos a participar a la Feria de Puertos y Ideas acá en Antofagasta, que hace el ferrocarril. Y ahí lo bueno que tuvo esa feria es que los niños hicieron distintas experiencias ya con personas que venían de centros astronómicos, de universidades, ya de distintas instituciones, distintas experiencias científicas, ya, y vivir esa experiencia distinta a las que se lo hago yo con personas de otros ámbitos. Bueno, yo los veía fascinados a ellos. No solamente a los alumnos de la academia, que uno sabe un poco que están interesados en ciencia. Traté de involucrar a otros niños que yo veía en clases que sí tenían interés, pero que no habían querido ingresar a la academia, cosas de cómo incentivarlos por esta área. Eso.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Renzulli really talks about the importance of expanding our audience. So that you were talking about taking students that were from outside of the academy and giving them those opportunities and resources and access to that. And I think that as opposed to a traditional model of gifted education, that Renzulli really emphasizes the importance of providing these experiences to as many students as we possibly can. We'll take one more, and then we'll talk about ways that we can better build these experiences for our students.
Hola, mi nombre es Natalia, soy profesora del ICEDUC y nosotros tenemos anualmente que se hace una especie de salida pedagógica, pero se hace de todo el colegio, desde transición hasta 4º medio. El año pasado fuimos a María Elena, a Pedro de Valdivia, y acá se evalúa la 4ª unidad, que es la última unidad que nosotros trabajamos durante el año, y hacemos un núcleo de aprendizaje. Se evalúan todas las asignaturas en esta salida, se planifica con tiempo y tuvimos trabajos maravillosos, como desde los más pequeños que trabajaron con muestras de microalgas que habían en un agua estancada, hasta los más grandes que trabajaban con cocinas solares. Y acá lo curioso de esto es que generalmente los niños que son más inquietos y que son más dispersos son los que están más concentrados y los que aportan más ideas y los que tienen más la motivación. Eso.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you for the context. Good. So you have, it seems, a really good understanding of what would make a big experience for your students. I want to talk a little bit more specifically about how we can maybe develop some smaller experiences. So it's not every day necessarily that we can take our students to the flowering desert or to a mining town, or bring in sort of these amazing guest speakers that are going to transform their lives. So, so my wife and I, along with Joe Renzulli, wrote a book called "Using the School-Wide Enrichment Model with Technology," and we were really having a lot of deep conversations with Joe about what his original intentions were for the enrichment triad and for the school-wide enrichment model. As we were going through, we wanted to try and communicate to teachers what would make a good Type 1 experience. And when we looked at this, we had assumed that instructions had been written down somewhere or developed for a way to make a Type 1. It turns out that they did not exist. And so we talked with a great number of teachers who had been using the model for a number of years about what they thought would be essential elements of a good Type 1 experience. So we looked also at sort of the original people who inspired Renzulli to develop the enrichment triad model. And we went back to those original readings to pull from these 4 steps. So those are heightening anticipation, stimulating interest. It's in Spanish, and I can't remember what that is in English. That is deepening understanding, and then opening up these new doors, or offering an open door to a new experience. I want to talk through each of these 4 points and what it might look like, and then I'll give you an example of what I think that a Type 1 could look like using this model. The step 1 of this is to heighten the anticipation. As we introduce our lesson or introduce our Type 1 experience, we want to get the students excited about what's about to happen. This can come in the form of probing questions. It might come in the form of a collection of interesting images, sounds, videos. It's something really meant to kind of spark their curiosity, something to get them excited and a little anxious about what's going to come next. In exactly the same way that if you're riding a roller coaster, once you sit down in that seat and you pull the lap bar down or the headrest comes over the head, that your heart starts beating and your palms feel very sweaty, and you know that something exciting is about to happen. You're not sure what's just over that first hill, but you know it's going to be something that you're going to remember. We want to try and have that sort of same enthusiasm or same big start to a lesson, where we're inviting them in and getting them very curious about what will happen next. The second piece of this is that we're really looking to stimulate their interest. This is where you would deliver sort of your traditional content. We want this to be also something that's going to be very exciting for the students. So it's not just a lecture. It's more of a, kind of that guest speaker field trip type of experience, or an exciting video, or something that's not something that they're necessarily getting every single day. As we're stimulating the students' interest, we want to hopefully create these situations where they're thinking about things on a cognitive level, that they're really feeling, or we're creating some type of emotional response. When we are not only thinking about things, but we're feeling them, then we are more likely to be able to remember things. Ultimately, during this stimulating interest, we really want them to be doing something, sort of getting their hands on something, feeling what it might be like to be a practicing professional as they're going through this experience. So we want them to try things out and do as much as possible. Definitely thinking, definitely feeling, hopefully doing. The third thing is that we're going to try and deepen the understanding of our students. This would be really... Of deepening understanding? On the previous one? So I'm going to do an example of each of these 4 steps. And so if I don't answer it, then I'll try and follow up with a better example. Okay. So when we're deepening the understanding, we want to have that opportunity to debrief with our students, so that we're discussing with them what it is that they thought and felt. So when you, for example, went on this field trip to the flowering desert, then you probably had an opportunity to talk with the kids afterwards. Like, what did you see? What did you think? What did you feel? You talked about having them kind of follow up with that poetry writing activity, so that they were expressing their emotions and what it is that they learned and experienced. This deepening understanding piece is also can be some type of an assessment, so that we are looking at what did they take away from that. I use the word assessment with some caution, because we don't necessarily want to just give them a test or a quiz, but instead it should be something that's going to really tap into what type of personal connection it is that they made from that. It would be almost a disappointment for them to have an amazing experience, and then here is a 20-question multiple choice quiz about what it is that you saw. Renzulli would say that these types of, or these type 1 experiences aren't something that need a grade. We want them to learn and take from it, and we need to try and debrief and figure out those personal connections that were made there. The 4th step of this is that we should really offer an open door to a world of possibilities that might exist in the form of a type 2 activity or a type 3 investigation. Again, this is not something that should be assessed or given a grade on, but instead what we're really trying to do is immerse our students in this world of their interests. So I'm going to try and give you an example of what this might look like. First of all, step 1, we're going to heighten the anticipation. I have a series of questions that I want you to begin to consider. I will also tell you that my example is not the best example. It is an average example. I want you to think of a time that you were stuck. What was the situation, and how did you feel? So take a minute and talk about these questions with someone else. Okay, coming back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I want to hear from a few people about these questions. When was some time that you were stuck? What was the situation, and how did you feel? Oh, right here.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Yo viví una experiencia viajando desde mi casa a la capital, a Santiago, más o menos a la altura de San Fernando, viniendo del sur. Quedamos detenidos en un tránsito de doble vía por aproximadamente 2 horas. Había ocurrido un accidente y no avanzábamos nada. No sé cuánto tiempo habría pasado, pero yo creo que fue muy poco. Y uno como que entra a desesperarse un poco porque tiene que llegar a un horario puntual. Y a cada rato miraba el reloj y no avanzábamos absolutamente nada, y cuando lográbamos avanzar o se movían los vehículos, uno decía, ya los vamos. Y no era así. Como le digo, en casi 2 kilómetros estuvimos 2 horas, pero yo lo personal me empecé a desesperar, me empecé a angustiar, que no iba a llegar a la hora, que iba a llegar atrasado, que iba a perder el vuelo de Santiago a Antofagasta. Esa experiencia viví yo en la Panamericana.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you.
Hola, esto pasó cuando mi segunda hija tenía alrededor de unos 6 meses. Mi hija mayor, que en ese entonces tenía 4 años, se quedó en casa de mis padres. Y yo quedé con la bebé en mi casa. Y mi madre me llama para decirme si podía ir a la casa a buscar a la niña porque tenía que salir a hacer unas compras. Y yo me levanté porque era temprano en la mañana, pesqué a la bebé, la puse en el coche y me fui al patio a buscar la ropa que estaba tendida. Pero no amarré a la niña en el coche, me fui así como rápido. Y estoy en el patio sacando la ropa del tendedero y se cierra la puerta. Fue terrible porque mi casa tiene todas las ventanas tienen reja. Y la desesperación era tanto porque la guagua estaba dentro y yo estaba afuera, no había nadie, era un día domingo, eran vacaciones de invierno, entonces toda la gente trabajaba menos yo. Entonces no había nadie, yo miraba hacia las otras casas y no veía a nadie. Mi hija adentro comenzó a llorar y yo le gritaba por la ventana que no, que... Había una sola ventana en el segundo piso que no tenía rejas. Monté unas cajas, unos palos, me subí con un martillo que había en el patio, quebré el vidrio, iba tratando de entrar a la habitación y todo se me derrumbó y me caí. Era terrible. Después logré escuchar a una señora a los pies de la casa y empecé a gritarle a ella que viniera a mi casa, que se diera la vuelta, que abriera como sea la puerta para que viera a mi hija. Y al final estaba el marido, me hicieron un hoyo así en la puerta de la casa. Pero llegaron el caballero también con su desesperación, hizo un hoyo en la puerta, cruzó toda la casa, llegó al patio y me dice, ¿dónde está la guagua? Y yo, está ahí, pasó al lado de ella. Pero ese momento fue terrible porque para mí fue como que estuve en el patio unas 5 horas y no habrán pasado ni 20 minutos que estuve ahí, pero para mí el tiempo fue como eterno, era una experiencia súper terrible. Sí.
That does sound terrible, but thank you for sharing. One more.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Yo cuando jovencita, ya, fui auxiliar cuando jovencita, mucho tiempo, fui auxiliar de buses, ya, y en un trayecto de Cerrillo a La Serena, 4ª región, me quedé encerrada en el baño del bus, ¿ya? Fue algo desesperante, atroz, y que me quedó una experiencia muy desagradable, que yo cuando viajo no voy a los baños. Es muy desesperante. Prefiero decirle al chofer que pare para ir al baño.
So we can see that being stuck is not, so we can see that being stuck is not a pleasurable experience. It is something that is often horrifying or terrifying because we can't get to our loved ones, or we're just so frustrated we're in this situation. So we've begun to kind of heighten the anticipation of this. I want to just try and solidify this a little bit more by asking you this question. What does it mean to be stuck? So here we're going to create kind of a definition of stuck. So we'll take 1 minute to talk about a definition, or your definition of what does it mean to be stuck. And coming back in, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I want to hear a few of your definitions of what does it mean to be stuck.
Hola, buen día. Es estar imposibilitado de realizar una acción deseada. Eso.
Yeah. There's no possibility to do what you desire. Someone else.
Para mí es estar en un punto donde no puedas avanzar ni retroceder.
You can't go forwards or backwards. I also like that you said, for me. Because here we were looking that there are no right or wrong answers, but it is your personal definition.
Para mí estar atascada puede ser, es no poder realizar una actividad que tengo en mente y tengo muchos tropiezos, estoy supremamente atascada, no cedo, no puedo ceder.
Right. Good. A couple of others.
Quedarse impactado o imposibilitado por un acontecimiento que impida movilizarse o realizar alguna actividad.
Okay, very good. And one more. Okay, we will go on. So we have a personal understanding of what it means to be stuck. We've connected and heightened our anticipation by relating a personal experience. I will say, sometimes you are just stuck. So now we're moving into the stimulating interest, where we're going to deliver some content. With our first story that was shared regarding the traffic, this was probably something that is causing his heart to beat a little bit faster, to remember what this must have felt like. To stimulate your interest and to deliver some content into this, I'm going to play a short video. It lasts about 1 minute. There is no dialogue, so you will just hear sort of the sounds of what's going on as we see a drone fly over this scene. As you are watching the video, I want you to begin to think of ways that we can deepen your understanding. The way that we're going to deepen your understanding is by asking you to do these 3 things. As you're watching this video clip, you're going to think of 3 words, any 3 words that come to mind. So it might be something that you see, something that you felt, but we're looking for just three words. You're then also going to write down 2 questions that you have about what it is that you saw or experienced within the video. And then the last piece that you'll do is that you will try and create some type of metaphor or analogy or simile that will describe what it is that you saw or experienced in the clip. So again, 3 words, 2 questions, 1 metaphor. Here is the clip. This is a type 1? Yeah, so we're still in the type 1. So this would be our deepening understanding section of type 1. Okay. I wanted to try something with you. So you have your 3 words that you entered. What we're going to do is we're going to use a tool called Mentimeter. So you're going to take your phone and you're going to go to menti.com. So you're going to go to menti.com. And then you're going to enter in the code 730372. And then it will ask you to enter the 3 words that you wrote down. And after you have entered your words in, share with other people what words it is that you wrote down, and also share with them the questions that you had, and perhaps your metaphor. So we'll take another minute to start that conversation about your questions and words and metaphors. Yeah, so looks like.
Oh, you have is a translator?
Yeah, so it's with the Google Translate.
Oh yeah.
And so you can.
No, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, perfect.
It works sort of well enough. Thank you. right, and we're going to come back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we had this video, which hopefully was stimulating some interest. We are thinking now about things related to traffic or congestion. So we then are kind of checking our comprehension or how we were thinking or feeling about this experience. So as you were looking at this, I asked you for 3 words to describe what it was that you saw. I like using this particular strategy because no matter which group of students that you're working with, everyone is going to be able to come up with 3 words. It's oftentimes difficult to only come up with 3 words because there's so many other words that you want to write down. I also like using this tool, Mentimeter, because it forms a word cloud. And so the words that appear the largest are the words that were used most frequently. So we see things like desperation, despair, frustration, and autos, cars. So we can really see that there are a lot of problems that need to be solved. We see organization or the lack of it, confusion as we go through. This is an interesting way to sort of assess the vocabulary of your students. Many of your most talented students will use more richer vocabulary words than some of your less talented students. I used to use this part of the strategy with the students that I worked with. My gifted students like to turn everything into a competition. I'm sure you don't have any students like that at all. Oh. The way that my students wanted to use this strategy was to turn it into a game. And so we would go through and we would have some type of prompt like this, and they would list out their words, and then they wanted to go around the room. So everyone would stand up, and they would list off one of the words that was on their list. And so we would go around, and they would not, you could not repeat a word. If you repeated a word or you ran out of words that were on your list, then you had to sit down. And so they would make me go around and around and around until there was only one person that was left standing. And then they were the champion of the word list for the day. It was a very proud honor for them. And they wanted to tell everyone that they had won the game for that particular week. Let's move to some of the questions that you asked. I'm going to say in this portion that I may have some answers, but I do not have all of the answers. And I think that using Type 1 experiences and using the SEM, that's an important place for you to be as a teacher. When we're developing Type 1 experiences, we do not have to be an expert and know everything that there is to know. Instead, we should help our students realize that, like them, we are learners, and that we want to be in this process learning right along with them, so that we can see that learning isn't something that you just do when you're in school, but learning is something that takes place over an entire lifetime. When you stop learning, then you have essentially stopped being alive. And so we need to emphasize that for them. So let's hear some questions that you might have based upon the interesting prompt that you just saw. No one has any questions. All the way in the corner.
Hello.
Hello.
Mi pregunta fue, o al menos una de mis preguntas fue, ¿qué provocó el atasco en primer lugar?
Yeah. So what produced this traffic jam? Do you want me to answer what I know?
No, pero...
So we can make some predictions. So we have a prediction for an accident. When someone else want to make a prediction? Do you have a prediction?
Un partido.
A soccer game. Okay. Another prediction? Yeah, yeah.
Era un día feriado.
A holiday. I will say that this happened in China a few years ago, and it was the result of a national holiday. So they had a 100-year, a centennial holiday, and as a result, the traffic significantly increased. What are some other questions that you might have about the video clip?
Para mí sería, ¿cuál sería la solución a ese trancón?
Yeah, what would be the solution? She's already moved from seeing that this is a problem to wondering what it is how we can solve this, because no one needs to be a part of that. Other questions that you have about this?
Hola. ¿Por qué el ser humano se estresa tanto en una autopista?
Yes, there is a lot of road rage. Other questions about what you see here?
¿Por qué no han buscado, o si es que existen, vías alternativas o un camino alternativo?
So we do see this one sort of small road over here, but there are so many people all wanting to go in that one direction.
¿Por qué no liberan el peaje?
You know, don't charge. So there's this toll booth. Why don't they open this up?
Buenos días. ¿Cómo entretener a la gente en este peaje? La mismo concesionario de la carretera.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
A mí se me ocurre, mirando esta fotografía, ¿por qué en otros países pueden tener todas las estaciones funcionando al mismo tiempo y en Chile siempre funciona una?
It is the same in the U.S. Like, all the toll booths are never open at the same time. One more?
¿Qué sucede si existe un accidente en ese lugar?
Yeah, so I imagine that they're, a helicopter. So one of the interesting things that I've noted about using this particular activity with a variety of different groups is that most of you have information devices at your fingertips. You just entered in the 3 words into the chart. Did anyone Google information about this particular scene? and look for information about what might be happening, or where this was, or how long the traffic jam lasted. Was there anyone who did that? Where? So it is in China. So I've done this activity dozens of times with groups of teachers, and almost never do teachers or adults look for the information. When I have done this activity with kids, almost always the first thing they do before they write down any question or word or metaphor is that they look for the information. They look for where it is because they want to know more, and they realize that they can find out that information for themselves. I think it's an interesting shift that we need to realize perhaps how our students are thinking and how their thinking and question asking and question answering might differ from our own. So I will leave you to look for some more information about this on your own time in the future. But I will give you a couple of pieces of information that I have learned about this over the time that I have used it. So this did take place in Beijing, China. As I already mentioned, it happened after a national holiday. So people from the city, they all went on vacation for a week. And so they drove out into the country. And so while they were on vacation, the government or the city decided to install a new toll booth that was not yet ready to be fully operational. As a result, all of these millions of people started streaming back into Beijing to be met with a traffic jam that lasted, it was estimated, for about 1 week that they were stuck in the traffic. That is what it means to be truly stuck. And a very horrible experience, to say the very least. As we were thinking about this, if we remember, our fourth step was really to open those doors to new experiences. That what we wanted to do was to look at this new world of possibilities. So this would be really kind of that open invitation to ask your students, what else might you like to investigate based upon what it is that you just saw? We already had one person who has responded that they wanted to begin to think of a solution to this. Like, how could we ensure that this type of traffic jam never happened again? We also then could begin to conduct investigations about the impact upon the environment. So there is so much pollution that's taking place here. What are things that we could put in place to better protect our environment? Other things that you might begin to investigate is, why are there so many white cars on the road? We could start doing some calculations of what percentage of the cars are white, and is white the most popular car color choice in China. We might also begin to talk about ways that we can better manage traffic by changing the infrastructure of a city, how we could perhaps propose alternative energy solutions, or look at investigating alternative forms of transportation. We might look at how many people are riding in each of these cars. What happened if perhaps they were carpooling? So all of those types of questions then really begin to step into what Renzulli refers to more as a type 3 independent investigation. So we've given just enough information to inspire some curiosity, to have those questions that are left unanswered, and then students may feel compelled then to begin to investigate those things on their own as part of a type 3 experience. What I'd like for you to do in the time that we have before we begin to take our break is to consider these 4 steps. Looking at ways that you could heighten anticipation in your students, stimulate their interest, deepen their understanding, and then create that open doorway for an additional experience. You already shared some type 1s that you have already had with your students. I want you to take these 4 steps, and we'll take about 10 minutes to talk with other people about how you could use these 4 steps to craft a different type of type 1. So you'll create the type 1 and have something kind of listed for each of those 4 steps. At the end of the 10 minutes, then we'll have you share some of your ideas. So just kind of sketch them out or jot them on your paper. How's it going? Yeah, okay, good. All right, welcome back. So you had a very short amount of time in order to begin to develop or try your hand at creating a type 1 using these 4 steps. I know that you did not have a chance or time to fully develop a type 1 experience, but I wanted you to at least have a taste of what it might be like. So I'd like to hear sort of your where it is that you got to, and thinking about what it is that you might present to your students within your classroom or learning environment. So we'll take time for maybe 3 or 4 of those groups to begin to share a type 1 experience that they might like to develop for their gifted kids. Oh, and right here, right in the back.
Hola.
Hola.
Mire, estábamos conversando y, bueno, nos costó un poco pensar en una anticipación adecuada a la actividad que tenemos pensada, pero sí la compañera proponía ponerles videos acerca de los residuos que llegan al mar y cómo impacta directamente en nuestra región el mal manejo de desechos. Entonces creíamos que podemos empezar a compostar desechos orgánicos en el colegio y para involucrar a los niños ofrecerles un tarrito en el que ellos trajeran los desechos orgánicos de sus hogares y a cambio nosotros les devolvemos el tarrito pero con tierra compost.
Got it. Thanks. There's a slight delay in the translation. Yeah, so in thinking about how you might begin sort of this investigation into ways to better protect the environment, then you could, I think, always showing kind of those short video clips can help give them an understanding of how big the problem is. The one piece of caution or advice that I would give to that is that you want to make sure that when you're using video clips for this first step for the anticipation, that you keep them very short, so that you're just delivering something that's going to create that emotional impact, rather than showing a lengthy video. Sometimes less is more. But going back, you're also having them think about things. They're creating that emotional response, and as they're transporting or bringing in the waste and taking new compost back home, then they're definitely doing something. So I think that that's a great way to approach developing a type 1. A couple of others. Oh. We're getting someone volunteered.
Estábamos pensando en una clase de historia, pero no comenzar la clase inmediatamente, sino días antes de la clase, la sala poner algunas cosas relacionadas con Egipto, por ejemplo. Los niños les llamaría la atención y preguntarían ¿por qué? ¿Qué es eso? ¿Qué se va a hacer? Y de alguna manera sería estimular el interés también para la clase, que fueran preparados y con una disposición distinta a la clase. Entonces, una vez ya, el día que toca la clase, decorar la sala de una manera distinta para introducirlos un poco en lo que es la clase real que tiene que ver con Egipto. Eso es lo que más o menos habíamos conversado.
Yeah, so I think that that oftentimes when you are able to bring in objects or artifacts into the classroom, sometimes you don't even have to say anything about them. You can just sort of bring these things in and like randomly set them around the classroom and see if there are students that are paying attention. Some students will notice any time that you change anything in the classroom and they will immediately have questions about that. Other times, students, it may take them a little while. So you might start by kind of slowly putting one or two things in there, and then, the next day, add a bigger collection until it just becomes this sort of obvious thing where they're like, what is going on? What is my crazy teacher bringing in all of these different things, and how does it relate to what's going to happen next? So again, really heightening that anticipation of like, I wonder where we're going on this journey in learning. So let's take one more.
Un pequeño aviso, profesores, cuando opinen o pregunten, si lo pueden hacer a un ritmo un poquitito más pausado para que alcancen los traductores. Eso.
Oh, okay.
Gracias.
Sorry.
Hola, buen día. Nosotros pensamos en hacer como una clase o plantear una problemática sobre el tema de las sumas. Pensando también en una matemática que tenemos que instalar en los niños, una matemática más funcional. Lo digo como experiencia porque trabajo con niños con autismo en opción 4. Entonces, lo que a mí me interesa plantear con ellos es que ellos sepan cómo resolver cada situación y saber qué es lo que van a tener de vuelta o cómo van a utilizar el dinero de manera funcional. Entonces, se puede plantear un problema o alguna situación de preparar algún alimento en conjunto dentro de la sala, no sé, preparar completos o algún sándwich o algún postre y definir con ellos cuáles son los ingredientes y ir al supermercado con ellos mismos y ver el costo que va a tener cada ingrediente hasta poder comprarlo, llevarlo a la sala y preparar lo que ellos ya tenían pensado. Para que en el fondo ellos sepan cómo utilizar el dinero y saber cuál es el costo y qué ingredientes tenían que comprar para poder conseguir lo que ellos se plantearon. Eso.
Right. So in these experiences like this, then what you were describing as that was well done is that you were taking math and you were making it personal and meaningful for the students. In any content that we teach, they have to have this understanding of why it matters to them, how they're going to use this information. If we just present numbers to them, then oftentimes they might not understand where they're going to use addition. But if we then say, oh, here's how you're using addition in order to go shopping, or to how you're using numbers and fractions when you're developing a recipe, for example, then it becomes more meaningful and memorable for them. I want to just go back to this slide one more time as we go into the break, and that as you're thinking about developing those type 1 experiences, remember that it's not just about the content, that it really is about that emotional connection, where they're feeling something and that they're making it personally relevant for them. And that ultimately we want them not only to be receiving information, but we want them doing something with that information to help make them creative and productive. So thank you very much. We will take a 30-minute break. Oh, yeah, thanks. Hello and welcome back. We're in the last portion of our time together. And I thought that I would start this, our last section here with a quote from Paul Torrance. Paul Torrance is one of the fathers of creativity in education and an expert in gifted education. And around the year 2000, he published a longitudinal study that was really the culmination of his life's work, which he called the Manifesto. In the Manifesto, he had been studying this group of highly creative individuals for nearly 40 years over the course of his lifetime and their lifetime. At the final stage of this study, he asked these creative people who had gone on to achieve a certain level of eminence within their field, he asked them what were the things in their life that had really made a difference, that had allowed them to be successful. And he distilled this down into 7 different items. And one of the most important things that was on the list that these individuals were giving to young people was to not be afraid to fall in love with something and pursue it with intensity. And indeed, that's what we hope to do as teachers and as educators, that we hope to find those things that our students are so interested in that they fall in love with it and that they pursue that over the course of a lifetime. I think that we can really help them develop this love for different academic subjects by doing what Renzulli has really emphasized, and that is providing those opportunities, resources, and encouragement. I really keep coming back to this because I think that this is something very important for us to remember as teachers. We have to provide as many opportunities to as many students as we possibly can. Not just necessarily the highly gifted students, but a wide range of our student population deserves and needs and can benefit from having more opportunity. We also need to provide them with the resources. What types of technology do they need to have access to? What types of information resources do they need to have access to? But most of all, we need to provide them with that encouragement, because doing anything that is difficult or accomplishing great things really requires a lot of encouragement on our part as teachers and educators in order to develop those gifted behaviors. At the center of these gifted behaviors, and really what the hallmark of what a type 1 is really about, it all comes down to those student interests. Oftentimes we ask our students, what is it that you want to be when you grow up? And I've come to look at this question as not necessarily the best question that we can ask our kids, especially at a young age. Because so often they have no idea what it is that they want to be when they want to be when they grow up, and instead they will say just whatever their friends are saying, or oh, I want to become a policeman or a doctor, without really understanding what that means and what's involved with that. We also have to think about the kids that are living in today's time will probably have jobs when they grow up that have yet to be invented. As technology advances at a more rapid state, the things that they will be working on as adults probably are not jobs yet that have even been considered as possibilities. If we think back to the things that are now possible in 2019 versus when we were in elementary school, many of the jobs that some of our friends or families might have weren't things that were even possible. I can remember being in elementary school and telling my teacher when she asked me during the career week what it was that I wanted to be when I grew up, and I said that I wanted to be some type of computer programmer. And in the 1970s, she was like, I really don't even know what it is that you're talking about. I don't know what to write down or how to tell you to visually represent that, because I've never seen a computer in person. At that point in time, it was something that was still sort of this world of fantasy that was out there. When we ask our kids what they want to be when they want to be when they grow up, it's often an unreasonable question, and sometimes it's unrealistic for them to begin to answer. In thinking about this, we may be unknowingly setting them up for failure. So instead of asking what our kids want to be when they grow up, let's ask them what they are interested in today. We can't control the future, but we can control today. We can figure out those things that they are interested in and meet them where it is that they are. This is reasonable. This is realistic. And this sets them up for success. So we really have to start with that interest of our students, and that's where we begin to develop our type 1 experiences. Renzulli had developed, I think, a really fantastic instrument that your group here has translated into Spanish. It's known as the interestalizer, and it goes through and it asks a variety of different questions, starting off some pretty general questions of what kind of books do you like to read? Some of your gifted students or your bright students may say that they don't like to read books, that they like to read information online. No? Okay.
It's because they have the little book
okay.
as part of the handouts that we deliver in the first days. So they have it in the page.
Yeah.
And I was
That's where I pulled it from. So.
Okay. Yeah.
So do you want to tell them about that?
Do you want me to tell them already? Or?
Yeah, you can tell them now, and then you can also tell them about the book.
Okay.
So it's a great opportunity to do both of those.
Profesor, perdón. Sí. Ya. Lo que sucede es que la clase con Brian está pensada y está revisada recién desde ayer, porque ayer llegó, etcétera, etcétera. Entonces, una de las cosas que le solicitamos que incorporara era el tema del interestalizer, que es un elemento que está en el librito chiquitito que les entregamos, porque todo lo que hemos estado hablando durante estas semanas está resumido en el librito café que les entregamos, ¿sí? ¿Cuál es la idea? Como lo dice el título del libro, es una guía para poder llevar a cabo la implementación de esta experiencia, ¿sí? Entonces, gran parte de lo que hoy día estamos hablando está presente acá, ¿ya? Uno de esos elementos es justamente el interestalizer. Ahora, el interestalizer está como un screenshot del interestalizer y no el documento completo, ¿ya? Para eso tenemos dos opciones. O creamos uno propio, o me llaman y se lo mandamos y eso que ya saben. El interestalizer tiene que ser muy adaptado a lo que yo necesito y a lo que yo quiero hacer. Por eso es que les doy la opción de pueden hacerlo, no tiene que ser un documento muy extenso. Ya lo vamos a hablar. Además de eso, Brian me pidió que, al parecer había surgido en varias oportunidades la duda de los libros que él está mencionando, del documento real que él menciona, ¿sí? En español, todos los textos del modelo de Renzulli no están traducidos, salvo uno que es como la Biblia, que es un libro azul que lo tiene todo y que te lo explica así, casi como si fuese un niño pequeño que va a llevar a cabo el modelo de enriquecimiento. Ese existe, lo teníamos, lo perdimos. Pero para poder trabajar con eso, es que hay otro texto que es muy bueno, que personalmente con Cristian y Valentina nos encanta utilizarlo, que es un libro amarillo. El libro amarillo tiene lo mismo que el libro azul, pero de una manera un poquitito más académica, ¿sí? ¿Cuál es el tema? Yo tengo ese libro en digital y se los voy a mandar. De hecho, el texto que tuvieron que leer del modelo de enriquecimiento para la asignación 2, si no mal recuerdo, es un extracto de ese libro. Y ese libro, les aviso al tiro, son los primeros 3 o 4 capítulos, que son a todo dar 60 páginas, como lo que tiene la información muy concreta de lo que están requiriendo. Así que se los voy a compartir entero para que ustedes lo puedan revisar y puedan tenerlo a la mano. ¿Ok? Además de eso, Brian me mencionaba que había una inquietud respecto al tema de las tecnologías. Entonces, con él ya estamos conversando acerca de que él me pueda compartir el capítulo que está mencionando y nosotros poder traducirlo. Nos tienen que dar un poco más de tiempo, es un capítulo y todo el tema, pero una vez traducido nosotros se los vamos a compartir. ¿Ya? Profesora. Se los traigo ahora a la salida. Mano arriba, ¿quién no tiene el libro? Ok, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Al profe sí se lo entregué, qué fresco. Ya, perfecto. Por favor, que no quiero quitarle mucho tiempo a la clase de Brian, por favor. Voy a encargarme de traer los textos, ya calculé más o menos cuántos son. El libro que escribió él, como les digo, nos los va a enviar y vamos a intentar traducir el capítulo, ¿ya? Ahora, ya es un buen momento para que empiecen a revisar el libro pequeñito. Es una lectura muy rápida, así que no se van a demorar tanto en leerlo y se van a encontrar con lo mismo que hemos estado hablando estos días. Así que se los recomiendo mucho, vayan echándole una ojeada consciente, ¿ya? I think that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Then.
No, great, thank you.
Profesor.
Oh. Can't,
Okay,
so you need to repeat the question so that they can translate for me.
For you.
Yeah.
Sorry. He's asking where are there. He's asking where are the.
No, you have to say in there so that they can hear you.
Están preguntando, te lo digo en español, ¿verdad?
Yeah.
Ok. Están preguntando dónde están los PowerPoint que quedé de enviarles a la plataforma que utilizamos y que no he hecho. Básicamente me están dejando en evidencia.
Yeah. Oh, got it. So I will. So they will eventually be on.
La presentación de Brian está disponible.
So they will be here, but they are not there yet. Later today.
Está preguntando si los anteriores también van a estar disponibles.
Yeah, all from yesterday and today.
No, y los otros van a estar en la plataforma de Tarpuq. Sí, perdón, disculpen. Semanas difíciles, perdonen. ¿Algo más? ¿Sí? ¿No? ¿No? ¿Ok?
Oh, got it.
Ok, perfecto. Eso, revísenlo.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Any other questions while Alejandro is here? Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Boop, boop, boop. So as Alejandro was saying, in this book, then there is a snapshot of these questions which is where I pulled this information from. As he suggested, perhaps you can make up your own interest-based questions for your students. If you go online and you search for student interest surveys, then there would be a whole variety of things that would be available already for our questions for you to choose from. And looking at the questions that were initially put together, you can ask kind of about the books that people might be reading, that your students might be reading, or what their favorite book is. That will give you some insight into their interest. I think perhaps my favorite question in this list is the last one, where it says, imagine you could travel to any time in history, where would you go? So it gives you kind of this understanding of, are they interested in different cultures, different time periods? If I were answering this question as a kid, I would choose sometime in the future, because I would want to see what that might look like. Or I might go back to ancient Roman times to see how difficult their lives may have been. So asking those types of open-ended questions, again, questions that don't have right or wrong answers, but that are really meant to talk about who you are as a person and what it is that you're interested in. It's those personal interests and what makes us unique and special and different that's really the central point of the school-wide enrichment model. What we're going to do in this next section is I'm going to give you a survey. It's called My Way. And you're going to look at the items on here, and you're going to rate how you feel about this. Again, this isn't something that's meant to be graded, but it's something that will help you have a perhaps better understanding of how you might like to learn or express yourself. So you'll complete these, and then there's a scoring guide. And so then we're going to have you calculate those, and then we'll discuss your results. I think that's 4. Oh, there you go.
that we made last year. Besides this book, we made 3 books.
Yeah, he gave me all 3.
Okay, so the teachers don't know that about the third book, the white one.
Okay.
That's about products
Got
of students.
Mhm.
So we wanted until today to talk about that.
Okay.
When you talk about real products.
Got it.
So we are going to talk about, well, I'm talking about real products.
Okay.
So when you do that,
Okay. Then I will.
yeah, toss
Yeah.
the,
Got
toss
it.
there's an
Pass the mic.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. So as you are totaling your sums, then go ahead and talk with your neighbors about how you scored versus how they scored and what your preferred expression style is. So let's take about 2 more minutes, and then we'll come together and talk about it as a group. And we'll take one more minute. Okay, and we're going to come back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, I want you to look at your totals. And I want you to take into consideration the areas that you scored the highest in. So you may have a number of areas that tied for first. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to go through each of the items, and I'm going to ask that you raise your hands to show if that area was your highest or most preferred expression style. I'm going to do a count, and then I'll add it to our chart up here, and then we'll have a discussion about anything that we notice and wonder. So let's start with escrito. So how many people had that as their preferred or top score? 9. Next, oral. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Artes? And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Información? Or informatica? Yes. Informatica? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Audiovisual? 2, 3. Commercial? 2, 3, 4. Services? 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Drama? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Manipulative? 1, 2. And musical? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Good. Talk with your neighbors for a minute about what you notice about our results as a group. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So what are some of the things that you noticed about our results? Is there anything that surprised you or that stands out to you? And I don't see the microphone. So what is it that you noticed about our results?
El alto puntaje que tiene servicios entre todos los colegas. Eso quiere decir que los docentes nacimos para servir.
Yeah, absolutely. Other observations?
Among the higher scores, those are the typical characteristics that people think about the teachers, that they are good at acting, they're good at oral expression, and they are also, they have a special sense to serve others.
Yeah. So in looking at our results, there's nothing that's probably surprising, given that we are a group of teachers, of educators. I would have been surprised if the service number was low, but instead, most of you had that as one of your highest, or probably higher scores. How do you think your students would compare to these results? What do you think that their areas or their highest areas might be? Yeah, talk about that, and then we'll come back together. And coming back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Attention. So what do you think your students' highest area would be?
En primer lugar, informática. Siguiéndole audiovisual, la producción de video y esas cosas. Luego, el arte, por esos murales gigantes que hacen los niños en las calles. Grafitis, bien, gracias. Y en el caso de nuestra escuela, servicios, porque nuestros alumnos hacen muchos servicios a la comunidad. Somos una escuela ecológica.
Oh, fantastic. Other thoughts about what students would areas would be the highest?
Yo también destacaría la parte musical. En la escuela donde yo trabajo, la Juan Pablo, tienen una orquesta sinfónica. Entonces también ahí los chicos también tienen esa actitud sobre la música.
Fantastic. So in using the My Way survey, which I posted a link on the website that I'll give to you that has all of the slides as well in the Spanish version. What I have seen as I've used this particular instrument with groups of teachers and also with students over the years is that almost always the services category is the highest among teachers. For many of our gifted kids, that is sort of one of their lower scores. But for many of the gifted kids who have this compelling sense to do good, or to serve their community, or to make the world a better place, then they will score very high in the services category as well. Other scores that tend to be the highest among teachers are the writing and the speaking, because we often do a lot of that as teachers, and it's something that has been traditionally emphasized within schools. When I've used this same survey with kids, writing and speaking are almost always some of the lowest scores that they have. Yet it is what we do the most of in school. And so as we think about this, I want to encourage you to reflect on where it is that your students want to be spending their time, how it is that they best express themselves, and look for those product and project options that are really going to tap into their talents and so that they can better express themselves. If you're always asking students to write down how they're feeling, but you're never giving them the opportunity to act something out, then you're not really getting at all of their full understanding of what they're getting out of the learning experiences that you're providing. I'm going to shift one thing, and we're going to then go on to type 2. Right. So we've talked now through the type 1, the general exploratory activities. Again, that's probably as a teacher where you're going to be investing most of your time to build out these type 1 experiences. Type 2 then are the how-to skills. And so I want to take a little bit more time to investigate and talk about what that might look like and how we can develop these experiences within our classrooms. So in looking at Renzulli and Reis's original conception of what type 2s are, they outlined 5 basic activities or 5 categories that they believe would equate to a type 2 experience. These would be cognitive training activities, things to enhance sort of their thinking. It might also be affective training, so helping them better cope with their emotions and how they might be feeling about different things that are happening within the world. We also have these learning how to learn types of things that we might explore. And that we have to help our students develop those traditional study skills so that they can be better learners. If we want our students to conduct research investigations, we first have to teach them how to be a researcher, how to better look up information in online environments or information in traditional texts, and also to verify their sources. Perhaps they're needing, to look at and determine if something is real or if something is fake, or if something is real information or misinformation. The final piece there is looking at helping them develop their written, oral, and visual communication procedures. Our students aren't necessarily born knowing how to give a presentation or how to give a talk or how to put together a PowerPoint presentation or to design and develop a movie. But we can teach them how to do each of those things so that they can be better presenters and better share their information. So I want to talk a little bit about some training exercises and what this might look like within a 2019 kind of classroom. Now, when I ask most teachers where they get their ideas or inspiration from, or where they go to look for creative things that they want to do either at home with their family or creative things that they want to do within their classroom, I almost always get one most popular answer. I hear from a lot of teachers that they are lovers of Pinterest. And Pinterest is this wonderful tool because we can go there and we can search for and see all of these amazing creative things that people are doing out there. And then we get these ideas, and then we go and we try those ideas out for ourselves. And my experience has been that it often looks a little something like this. We see this on Pinterest. And then we go and we try and do it, and this is what our result actually looks like. And we have totally nailed it. It's because we see things and then we think, gosh, it must be so easy to accomplish that, let me try it. But instead, we really need more how-to training. It's not just enough to read a tutorial or watch a tutorial video. we need to actually experience that and try that out for ourselves. As I was talking with Alejandro and Christian about the experiences that you have had sort of leading up to this, then they were telling me that you all had an investigation that involved learning how to cook. And so I want you to think about those experiences. Maybe you cook at home all of the time. Maybe you have limited cooking experience. But learning to become a chef at first seemed maybe like it was something that was very easy to do. And then you got involved in the process, and then you realized this is much more difficult than I had anticipated. I need some additional training or instruction on how to better do this. It's exactly the same experience for your students. As they're learning how to become a chef or they're learning how to build a robot, they're going to need some direct instruction on how to accomplish those things. Now, earlier I talked about YouTube and how I love watching YouTube videos to teach me how to do things. I will watch multiple videos to get different perspectives until I can get it absolutely right, because I almost never can solve the problem by watching just the one YouTube video and then doing it correctly the first time. In some recent studies that were conducted at the University of Chicago, two social psychologists studied people using instructional videos, specifically on YouTube. And they found that as people watch these YouTube videos, that they come away believing that they have taught them everything that they need to be successful. This is especially true of young people that are in college or university. Perhaps you've had kind of an experience as growing up as a child, like the first time that you saw a musical instrument or you saw someone playing a piano or a guitar, and then you went to pick up that same instrument or put your hands on the piano keyboard, and as you move them across, you were mimicking what you had just seen the other person do, but you're very confused about why the same music isn't coming out of the instrument that the musician was able to produce. So as a part of this research study, their hypothesis was that repeatedly watching YouTube instructional videos would increase the confidence of the individuals, but not their ability. So this is what they were hypothesizing. The researchers wanted to test this hypothesis that watching experts perform a skill and watching them over and over again will improve people's confidence, but not their ability. So they came up with a few clever experiments. So in one of them, they had over 400 volunteers watch an instructional video to learn how to pull a tablecloth off of a table. So we're going to watch a short video. There's some text in English, and so you will then translate as it's going through. So how many people are feeling confident now that they could pull a tablecloth off of the tablecloth? what important thing did you learn from this video that maybe you did not know before about this trick? Oh, all the way over there. So what important piece of information do we now have that you did not have before?
Que el mantel no tiene que tener bordes y una mesa suavecita.
Yeah. Should not have a hem.
Yo diría la técnica.
Yeah, the technique. So we're going to pull straight down.
Pienso que la seguridad que da la persona que está mostrando el video me da la seguridad que lo voy a hacer.
Yeah.
Porque cuando lo vi al principio fue impresionante. Pero después cuando él lo hizo, yo también lo puedo hacer.
Yeah. So you're feeling much more confident about this. So we did learn a couple of important things about this. So you have to, if you have a tablecloth that has a hem, it's probably not going to work because the hem then is going to bump all of the silverware and the glasses and turn that upside down. Also, you have to. They were suggesting that you pull straight down. If you had asked me how to do that trick before watching the video, I would have pulled straight out or even pulled up. But it's the opposite of what you need to do. I will let you try pulling off your own tablecloth when you get home. So what the researchers found as a part of this is that there was a dose-effect relationship. That the more times that people watched the video on how to perform the trick, the more confident that they felt that they could do it for themselves. So we already heard from a couple of people that were like, oh, I feel like I could do that. I've seen it one time. If you watched it 3, 4, 5 times, then you would feel like very confident. Like, okay, I'm going to watch this. I'm studying. Like, which angle am I pulling down at? Now I'm feeling confident in order to do that. Just as we're learning things, we often have to have multiple exposures to that same piece of information before we learn it. The same would be true of these videos. However, the researchers found that we often make this mistake. We think that when we watch something, that equals learning. But simply watching something doesn't mean that we can actually do that. We might feel that we're confident, or that we have the ability to perform the tablecloth trick, but yet we've not yet tested it out. Watching seems connected to what it is that we're learning, but that is not necessarily the case. So just because you see something doesn't mean that you have learned it. You perhaps have had the experience of teaching your students, like a unit or a lesson, and you think, gosh, they're all here and they're paying attention and they're involved in this lesson. And then you go to assess them on that lesson, and then suddenly you are incredibly disappointed because they didn't learn all of the things that you thought that they were going to learn from that lesson. The researchers stated it this way. They said that it's often more complicated than we think. So before someone tries to replicate or do a feat that they've seen on YouTube, is there a way to remind them or help them realize that it's more complicated than they think? So for this next exercise, or part of their study, they had 3 groups of volunteers watch a short video of someone juggling with bowling pins. And then they told everyone that they would be asked to juggle too. They gave each group different kinds of information about juggling, like the weight and the dimensions of the bowling pin. So here's our juggling video.
street neighbor had a bowling supply business.
How many people are feeling confident that they can juggle 3 bowling pins? Yeah, we've got one person who is confident. I would love to have bowling pins to let you go for it. So in this, they gave one group no information. They just showed them the video. Other group, they said, here's how big the bowling pins are, and here's how much they weigh. But with the third group, they said, hold this. And they gave them a bowling pin. And they asked them just for 1 minute to hold on to that object. They then found that, that this group was more able to better predict how difficult the task was because they had had that physical experience. So it's not just enough to tell students about things, but we need to give them as much of a physical experience as we possibly can. Renzulli really talks about kind of type 2s as providing this just-in-time knowledge. When we're teaching our students about research skills, they may not necessarily be interested in that. Or they're like, when am I ever going to use this? Or sometimes when we're teaching them things how to do, like within math, they're always wondering, when am I ever going to use this? But if we very carefully align this type 2 how-to training with the moment in time when they need that experience, then it's going to be something that will be much, much more memorable for them. Because ultimately, type 2s serve as these training wheel types of experiences. It's really important for us as teachers to be there to support and encourage our students through this process. But ultimately, we want them to break free of those training wheels and then go on to ride off into their own sunset. So the purpose of our type 2 is then to have them become these independent learners so that they have the necessary skill set in order to be able to succeed on their own. So again, looking for this thinking, feeling, and doing, having them constantly come back to what are the necessary skills that I need in order to accomplish this task. And that's going to lead us to type 3s. Type 3s are the independent or small group investigations, our products, and our performances. When Renzulli and Reis were working on developing the school-wide enrichment model, one of their early influences was the great educator John Dewey. Renzulli often uses quotations, and particularly quotations from John Dewey. One of my favorite articles that Joe wrote starts out with this John Dewey quote from the year 1938. He says that the whole process of education should thus be conceived as the process of learning to think through the solution of real problems. And in Renzulli's article, What Makes a Problem Real?, he talks about the importance of giving our students real problems, giving them things that are authentic in nature, and giving them an authentic audience to present that information to. Really, one of the central points of a type 3 is that it is something that is going to extend beyond just the teacher as the audience. So many times our products that we're asking our students to develop are only seen by us. And so they have this audience of one. And so they think about, gosh, well, I'm going to do all of this hard work, but no one else is going to see it but my teacher. Sometimes they don't even get the opportunity in many classrooms to share that with their classmates. But a type 3 would be something that would not only be shared within a classroom, but shared with a much wider audience in the real world. Renzulli also talks about making in a real problem, that a real problem must have a personal frame of reference. It needs to be something that has that deep personal connection for the students. They need to understand why it is that they are going about solving this problem. It also, or he says that it has this personal frame of reference since it involves an emotional or affective commitment. They are involved in this on a deep and personal level. They see sort of the injustice within the world, or they see that that the environment is just being wrecked, and they want to do something about that. They feel compelled to make the world a better place, and it's on that personal or that feeling level, as well as the cognitive or intellectual one. So it's not just something that they're doing for a grade, but it's something where they are personally invested in it. Renzulli says that also a problem, I don't have the English translation here, so I'm really struggling with what this says. Oh, you can just tell me what it is. I can put on the headset. It's magic. Okay, so calling something a problem doesn't make it a real problem for a person or a given group. Oftentimes we will tell our students, you're going to solve this problem. But if they don't have that personal connection to it, if they don't care about that problem, then it doesn't make it a real problem for them. Again, so they have to be connected to it on an emotional and personal level. Oh, there it is. Calling something a problem doesn't make it a real problem. And this one then says, oh, can you? Okay. And then what does this one say? Okay, so the purpose of pursuing this real problem is then to bring about some type of change, again, to make the world a better place. And looking at this, Renzulli kind of says that, that we have these different levels of our types of activities that we might go through for our students. We might start at the lowest level by providing them with some type of puzzle. This would help them learn how to solve a problem, but that might not necessarily be a real problem for them. They can also go through training exercises, which are often equated with type 2s. They might have some type of simulation where they're imagining that they're solving a problem, perhaps in a historical context. Or they're imagining that they're an astronaut beginning to develop a colony on Mars. So they're working their way through this kind of story or simulation. Still not a real problem. We might look at some type of social issue that we're beginning to study. But that ultimately we want our students to identify their own problems and then pursue them themselves. I want to talk about the difference between a type 3 and a project. We're going to talk about that first from the teacher standpoint, and then we're going to talk about that from a student standpoint. So a type 3 from a teacher standpoint, a teacher in a type 3, a teacher would be support the planning and goal setting for the students in the type 3. If we were assigning it as a project, we would then just prescribe the requirements and the format. So with this piece, type 3, the students also have input and control into it, versus the project where we are the ones who are in control and telling them what it is that they have to do. The second piece of this, the teacher role within a type 3 would be to facilitate the navigation of the real world process. So as they are learning how to, say for example that they wanted to write to their legislators or their representatives to talk about how they could reduce the amount of waste within the community. They need to learn who to contact how to go about writing letters, or what it is that they might need to say. The teacher in this role would help navigate some of those real-world situations. Versus in the project, we would just be, as teachers, observing the student progress. Here we are much more involved, as opposed to just kind of observing from the side. The last piece of this, from a teacher's standpoint, we would work with the students to help define an authentic audience for them. Where beyond the classroom are we going to share or publish this information? Who else in the world needs to see this? Who needs to hear it? How can we develop products that will go out beyond the four walls of our classroom? Versus with a project, teachers would just be assigning the rubric and assessing the outcomes. Again, an audience of one versus an audience of many. Let's look at this from a student standpoint. So we're wanting the students to think, feel, and act like practicing professionals versus just fulfilling a requirement for the project. So here in the type 3, they're thinking, feeling, and doing like practicing professionals. From a project standpoint, I've got to complete the requirements for the project. Yeah. All right. Question? I have a question.
Disculpe, si mal no le entendí, esto... sí.
Sorry, I was turned down. Okay.
Okay. Si mal no le entendí, en la diapositiva anterior, estos son como los consejos que su método da, ¿cierto? Porque la semana pasada la profesora, ella nos decía que no era bueno entregar rúbricas a los estudiantes porque uno limitaba la creatividad de ellos. Entonces ahí se me produce como una contradicción, una duda.
Thank you for asking. This column is what you do not want to do. So let's say that again. This column is what you do not want to do. This column is what you do want to do. Thank you. So from the student perspective, it's going to be the same thing. So we're going to look at this is what we're trying to accomplish. This is what we do not want to do. This is what typically happens. So we're wanting them to think, feel, and do like practicing professionals versus just having them go through the motions of completing the assignment. We're also wanting them to perhaps ultimately creatively contributing to a field so that they are becoming experts. So there's no reason why students, even at a very young age, can't publish academic level papers. Oftentimes, they will work with university professors to create academic research, or they can contribute or produce and publish books of their works in poetry or of their artwork. From the student standpoint, a project would simply have them synthesize existing information. They aren't discovering anything new. They're reporting on what is already known. The third piece of this would be to have them produce this product for an appropriate audience. So it's something that they're wanting to, again, share with the world versus only having the teacher or the audience of one present that. I think this is a great time to share what I consider to be a very authentic Type 3 product that was developed right here as part of your group.
Ok. Una de las cosas que hemos hecho con los estudiantes hace un par de años atrás fue justamente lo que estaba mencionando Brian, de trabajar desde productos reales para audiencias reales, ¿sí? En ese sentido es el libro que tanto Cristian como yo tenemos en la mano. Es el tercer libro que como proyecto generamos, pero en verdad nosotros no hicimos mucho de este libro. Este libro fue escrito por los estudiantes de 3 talleres de producción literaria, de la Escuela Rómulo Peña, de acá de Antofagasta, de la Escuela Complejo JJ La Torre de Mejillones. ¿Esas 2? Ah, perfecto, 2, disculpen. Entonces, ¿qué sucedió? Los estudiantes tomaron un problema real dentro de su establecimiento. Vamos a hablar de la Rómulo Peña. Están cerca del cementerio y muchos de los estudiantes mayores se saltaban del colegio al cementerio a hacer destrozos. Por lo tanto, los chicos más pequeños querían hacer una manera de socializar la importancia del cementerio, la importancia de trabajar estas temáticas, de respetar nuestro legado histórico que también está presente en el cementerio. No solamente gente desconocida, sino también nuestros propios familiares, ¿sí? Hacen un proceso de investigación, hacen una visita al cementerio, hacen una visita guiada al cementerio y comienzan a generar una serie de textos que hablen acerca de quién está en el cementerio, por qué es importante respetarles y todo lo que va asociado a ello. No solamente se quedan con eso. Luego de hacer este proceso, ellos comienzan a ir al cementerio a exponer sus textos, comienzan a socializar con diferentes personas lo que ellos quieren conseguir, que es hacerle entender a los compañeros, no está bien saltarte a un cementerio a hacer destrozos. Para nosotros quizás sea algo obvio, pero para los estudiantes no lo era. Pero no nos quedamos ahí. Nuestra labor como programa es decir que esto se tiene que llevar lo más profesionalmente posible. Y si tú hiciste un texto, lo produjiste, también ahora nosotros vamos a poner que es lo que mencionaba del rol del docente, tiene que guiar a que esto se lleve a una instancia real, concreta, factible. Entonces, ¿qué pasa? Tomamos los textos de los estudiantes, con los dibujos de los estudiantes, y lo único que hicimos fue imprimirlos en una hojita bonita, diseñarles un poquitito, ponerle una tapa decente, y ya está. Todo el resto es tal cual. Desde los procesos de redacción y revisión, que también lo hicieron los estudiantes, nosotros solo tomamos el texto, lo adaptamos un poquitito al formato, y lo tienen ahí para revisar. No es el único, hay más por si lo quieren revisar, tranquilos. ¿Sí? De hecho, si desean libros, están afuera y los van a poder tener también para revisar. Entonces, ¿qué es lo que sucede? Tomo el problema, lo trabajo, hago un producto, ese producto lo socializo con la gente adecuada, porque no lo socializaron con cualquier persona, lo socializaron con la gente del cementerio, con la gente de la escuela, que son las 2 personas que lo necesitaban, los 2 grupos de personas que lo necesitaban. Y después de eso, los adultos que están rodeando el proyecto dicen, pero no me quiero quedar acá, no es suficiente. Porque si yo quiero que esto sea verdaderamente significativo, lo voy a transformar en algo real, concreto, que el estudiante se sienta orgulloso que es parte de. Y el libro. Y el libro se les entrega. Y ellos a su vez pueden entregar el libro a quien quieran y socializar su conocimiento y su aprendizaje porque tienen una herramienta real con la que trabajar. ¿Se entiende? Ese es uno de nuestros ejemplos. También tenemos el tema de la producción de los cortometrajes de terror que hicieron los chicos de Mejillones. Lo mismo, lo hicieron, planificaron, grabaron, editaron, lo hicieron en la avant premiere en el cine de Mejillones, pero no nos quedamos con eso. Después de eso que viene, hay que sacar la película versión pirata, entonces hay cientos de DVD de los cortometrajes de terror de los chicos y chicas. ¿Sí? Y nuevamente lo mismo, es un producto real que el estudiante puede utilizar para demostrar que sabe lo que hizo. ¿Sí? Y de esos, varios. Pero esos son los 2 ejemplos más concretos que tenemos y queríamos aprovechar el momento que Brian habla de lo importante de la distinción entre un proyecto y el modelo de enriquecimiento. El modelo de enriquecimiento va a que actuemos como profesionales en lo que queremos hacer y pensemos hasta dónde queremos llegar, cuál es el producto, cuál es la audiencia y trabajemos lo más cercano posible a lo que podemos llegar, a lo que podríamos llegar. ¿Sí? Si quieren el libro, está a disposición, nos avisan y les podemos entregar copias.
Respecto de lo mismo que hablaba Brian, esto surgió a raíz de una necesidad que es la que le comentaba Alejandro, de que los compañeros más grandes estaban saltando a ser destrozados al cementerio, pero también era un problema que implicaba a la comunidad porque una gran parte de los apoderados, en este caso de la Escuela Rómulo Peña, trabajan además en el cementerio, son funcionarios, o las mamás son las floristas que venden las coronas y los ramos afuera. Entonces era un problema que igual movilizaba bastante a toda la comunidad, por eso es un problema real, porque había este compromiso afectivo, emocional. Lo otro, ellos pasaron para llegar al producto final que es este libro por los distintos tipos de enriquecimiento. Por ejemplo, actividades de enriquecimiento tipo 1 que tuvieron fue ir al cementerio, hacer el tour guiado. Recibieron también la visita de una escritora regional que después los estuvo asesorando también en este proceso. Pero también ellos tuvieron la oportunidad de entrevistar a esta escritora, de que ella les contara su experiencia, cómo es escribir un libro, de forma que ellos también cuando estuvieran llevando a cabo este proceso se sintieran que estaban siendo escritores, que es lo que queremos lograr, que actúen como profesionales. Lograron, por lo tanto, desarrollar habilidades de tipo cognitivo, que fue mejorar la escritura, mejorar también su ortografía, la comprensión lectora. Aprendieron también a trabajar en equipos, a descubrir que quizá otros compañeros también tenían su misma habilidad, por lo tanto también mejoraron los temas de convivencia, se desarrollaron mucho también los componentes afectivos y fue un proceso súper completo para llegar a este producto que se titula Pequeños escritores, grandes historias, inspiración en la sala de clases. Nosotros a ellos les prometimos que lo íbamos a convertir en escritores y finalmente lo lograron. Entonces también hubo un llamado también porque hubo mucho material que no se pudo incluir porque las profesoras se lo entregaron a los chicos y los chicos los perdieron. Pero si ustedes van a hacer algún tipo de producto literario, conservar también los manuscritos para poder hacer algo similar. Y esto también va a estar próximamente disponible también en las bibliotecas. Entonces va a estar también, va a ser un producto que va a ser accesible para toda la comunidad.
Thank you.
¿Esto? Nosotros con Alejandro pagamos los libros. No, esto es en el marco del proyecto, porque son productos diseñados por los estudiantes en el marco de TarpuQ, entonces son dineros ministeriales.
Thank you. That is, I think, an awesome example of a type 3, and that we see that the students and teachers together identified a problem within the community, and then they went about doing something about it. So it didn't just involve the students within the classroom, it involved looking at all of the people that were working within the cemetery, local agencies and government officials, and also as they were going through, they learned important type 2 methodological skills. They learned how to be better writers and editors and all of the work that goes into publishing a book, which is quite an accomplishment, especially to be a young kid and to be a published author. You think about all that the world holds for you within the future when you are able to do that at a very young age. You then go back to remembering what it's like to think like a child, and you really believe and feel that everything is possible. In thinking about publishing books, I think that it is, I like when type 3s result in some type of physical artifact, some type of physical product, because it's something that the kids and their parents and the community can hold on to. It's great also to publish things online, and that has its own value, but there's nothing quite like producing a physical object. And I think that is something that is becoming increasingly valuable as we become more digital within our culture and within our world. I want to kind of close out type 3 and begin to move us towards our final activity, which will provide sort of a synthesis of everything that we've learned here together. And so Renzulli developed this quality checklist of what he considers to be, to make up a good type 3. As we're going through, Renzulli would say that maybe we need to consider these questions. In looking at a type 3, did every student do it? Not necessarily every one of your students will be involved in the same type 3 activity. Again, it should be something that is very independent for them. The second question asks, should every student do it? And the answer to that would also be no. Again, that we want it to be something that is personal and meaningful for the student. Because number 3, would every student want to do it? The answer is probably no. That they, because it is based upon their individual interests, their own investigations, then they might not want to do that project. They might want to choose to investigate a different problem that they have identified. Question 4, could every student do it? Probably not, because it's going to require a different level of commitment, depending on what the project is, also a different level of ability within that. Did the student do it willingly and with zest? Were they excited about completing this project? Hopefully, the answer to that one is yes, because we want them excited about their learning, that they're doing this because they want to, not because it's being assigned by their teacher. Number 6, or question.
Quiero hacer una pregunta con respecto a la elaboración y la participación de los estudiantes en un proyecto X. Todo el curso, todo el grupo de estudiantes debe estar involucrado. Usted dice no, por gusto, sí. Entonces, ¿deberían haber unos 3 proyectos para que los niños elijan?
So Renzulli would say that it should not be something that should be assigned, but something that the students create or that they come up with on their own. So that part is a big shift for us as teachers, because we're very used to saying, here are the 3 things that you're going to choose from. You will do one of these. But from an SEM model, if we're being pure to the model, then he would say, no, we're going to give them options, but it needs to come from themselves. I do have an example of how we build up to that, which is starts with the next slide. So we want them to use those appropriate resources and methodology, and we want them working towards that real audience, or an authentic audience. But, which leads exactly to your pointer, to your question. Oftentimes, we need to help our students experience success, or experience what it might feel like to work on a type 3. If they never see that that's a possibility for them to work up to, then they will not understand that that's something that they can choose to do. There's sort of an unofficial type within SEM that both Joe and Sally, depending on the day, may or may not recognize as one of the types. And so I just want to kind of give you an idea of how we scaffold for our students to get them to the point where they can complete a type 3. And it's called the type 2.5. That's the type 2.5. So we're now very familiar with this graphic. With this graphic. And so I think one of the big mistakes that, that people make with the model is thinking that it is linear. That you start with a type 1, it goes into a type 2, and then the type 3 is next. That's not necessarily how that works. We usually, I think, start with a type 1. So we might have, as a type 1, say for example, we've asked the interest of our students, and they are really interested in space exploration. They want to know all about rockets and how different companies now are developing rockets that will eventually take us to Mars. And so as we're beginning to develop this, they're deepening their interests in rockets and researching about then eventually life on Mars and how that might be possible. So after they've developed this interest, they then perhaps want to learn more, investigate about Mars. So they're going to develop these research skills on surviving on the surface of Mars. Some type 2 skills that they might need in order to be successful are those learning skills. How they can better understand information, how they can determine the relevance of the information that they're researching, how they can better take notes on the research that they're examining. They'll also need to develop or learn analyzing and organizing information skills, identifying sources of information, drawing conclusions from those. Essentially, they're developing these advanced research skills so that they can learn more about the topics that they are interested in. So after they have perhaps developed those type 2 skills, then they might have a student who becomes incredibly interested in what types of spacesuits are the astronauts going to have to wear? What are all of the requirements that would be involved in that? And perhaps they could design some type of prototype, or sketch out a design of a space-age spacesuit. Or maybe you have another student that's really interested in what are the requirements for living habitats as we think about going and traveling and visiting another planet. Now, as the students have developed their type 3 products and they've shared them with perhaps experts within the field, they've perhaps Skyped in or had email exchange with NASA scientists, then they can take that type 3 experience and they can begin to share it with other people. Usually when students develop their type 3, not only are they sharing it with that authentic audience, but then they're also using that type 3 to become another group of students type 1. So they will then take the knowledge that they have developed, where they're now an expert in spacesuit design, and they will share that with a new group of students that might also be interested in that. Now, as they're presenting this kind of type 1 to a brand new audience, of students, maybe you have kind of another student who starts looking and thinking about, gosh, well, Elon Musk is interested in having us travel to Mars, but he's also developing this other project called the Hyperloop. It's this high-speed train that runs through this tube that will allow these trains to carry passengers at, I don't know the conversion, it's 600 miles per hour. And so I'm trying to think what that is in kilometers. Yeah, it will travel. It will be able to travel as a train as fast as a jet plane goes. What's that? So yeah. So Elon Musk and his team are working on these incredibly supersonic fast trains that will allow you to travel great distances in a very short amount of time. Maybe they also realize that, that Musk is developing electric automobiles and that they're beginning to kind of take over, especially in the US. We're seeing like more and more electronic vehicles on the road. As they then kind of roll into a type 2, they now have a new set of requirements that these skills that they need to develop. Maybe you have a student who wants to develop a prototype of an electric vehicle. They then have to look through these kind of classic skills or how-to skills in order to develop them. They need to better understand how to be creative problem solvers and decision making. We need to teach them to really critically think through their problem, that they have to analyze and organize that information, that they have to prepare for independent work, that they need advanced research skills, and perhaps most importantly, we need to teach them to be better communicators. Many of our gifted kids have these incredibly brilliant ideas inside of their head, but we have to help them take those ideas out of their head and begin to share them with the world. So hopefully this kind of shows you sort of the flowing nature of what the SEM can look like. Again, with the type 2.5, we as the teacher are going to be more in control of that. We're going to be guiding them through that and trying to make it as authentic as possible. It does require a great deal of work. It is good work, but it is hard work. And it does make a difference. We have one final activity that I want to accomplish with you. I want you to, on a piece of paper. Oh, what's that? Oh,
Writing.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The writing. The activity that at least you tried to do. They made it with Marshall last week.
Oh, they did this?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I did not know that you did this last week. So this was the last thing that I had.
You want them to divide in groups and on the full writing?
Yeah. So then.
Because maybe I could use this moment to do the other thing. I don't know.
You can do the other thing. I mean, that's fine. That's fine with me. No, I can.
Wanted to do the writing.
Oh no, I kind of like threw it in at the end, so I was.
I will let you know.
No. I should have said so.
Sorry. Okay, but
no, like when we took out the compacting piece, then I was like, oh well, this would, and then this would sort of like wind it up.
Let me. Well, they will be glad to answer.
I think that they would be more than happy to answer.
Yeah, let me do a few things.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to do like a closure. Before I start to speak. I don't know what do you feel about it.
Huh?
Do you want to?
Yeah, let me provide a concluding thought,
Okay.
and then you can take the rest of the time.
The fact that they already made it, so at least they can think about it, and if you want them to speak to you about it, so you can at least know how do you feel or what they learned about the writing last week, if you want it. At the top of my head, that's what I.
No, it's good. I was just going to use that as sort of their synthesis of what it is that they learned here, but it sounds like that she already made the point that needs to be made with that. Okay. All right. Sorry, we're going to regroup. And then I'm just going to provide a couple of minutes of summary or some concluding thoughts of things that I think that are really important for you to remember. Number one, is that when we're thinking about Renzulli's model, that we're really focused on those gifted behaviors. We spent all day yesterday really talking about the importance of above average ability, of creativity, of task commitment, and those things interacting together. We also talked about the importance of realizing that sometimes these gifted behaviors are going to occur in certain people, at certain times, and under certain circumstances. Not necessarily all of your students are going to be demonstrating their gifted behaviors every single minute of the day that they are with you. Sometimes we have to remember that they are kids and that they need to have time feeling and acting like a kid. The other thing that I don't think really talked about yesterday is a metaphor that Renzulli uses with some frequency, and that is that a rising tide lifts all ships. So that when we have high expectations for all of our students, that all of our students will rise to those high expectations. But if we only have the lowest of the low expectations for our students, that is the level that they will rise to. So the more that we can expect out of them, the more opportunities, resources, and encouragement that we can provide, then the higher that they will rise to and elevate. I think the last thing that I want to say, and that I really want you to remember, is that it is important to think and feel like a kid. We don't need to lose sight of that inner child within us. And if we want to be creative, if we want to see all of the possibility that is within this world, then we have to remember what it's like to be that 4-year-old, and to remember that we can accomplish anything, and to bring that joy back into our lives, back into our classrooms, and meet our students each day with that joy of learning and of life. So I want to thank you very much for the time that we had together. I'm going to turn it over to Alejandro, who I think is going to give you some additional information. Great. Thank you.
Hasta el día de hoy hemos hecho una carrera casi para poder tener todos los fundamentos teóricos que tenemos que generar para poder pensar en cómo llevar a cabo esta experiencia de enriquecimiento al aula. ¿Sí? Mientras nosotros estábamos haciendo esto, con los directivos que han estado viniendo, hemos estado trabajando en implicancias operativas, elementos de gestión que tenemos que, estoy hablando como directivo, que tenemos que hacer para asegurarnos que ustedes puedan hacer lo que deseen, como deseen, cuando deseen. Ya logramos identificar que hay ciertas gestiones a nivel de tiempo, de espacio, de recursos humanos y de recursos materiales que se requieren para que ustedes puedan llevar a cabo las experiencias de enriquecimiento. Ellos ya saben que van a tener que destinar tiempo, recursos humanos, espacios del establecimiento y otras múltiples gestiones que van a tener que realizar para poder llevar a cabo lo que queremos realizar. ¿Qué es lo que nos falta? ¿Qué diablos vamos a realizar? Y eso es esa es la última patita que nos va quedando. Nos quedan algunos elementos que son súper importantes que trabajemos, pero ya son elementos complementarios que, más allá de ayudarles en la implementación, esperamos que les ayude a ustedes como profesionales. Pero ya es momento de que empecemos a revisar cuál es el formato de planificación, qué es lo que de verdad vamos a llevar al aula, y empecemos desde esta idea, no sé, de quiero construir un robot que borre la pizarra de la profesora bajita, que es una idea real del año pasado, es una idea real. Los niños querían hacer un robot que borrara la pizarra porque la profe era muy bajita y se tenía que subir a cada rato en una silla a borrar lo que escribía arriba, y era un chiste. Entonces dijo, era un problema real, había una propuesta de solución, pero nadie sabía nada de robótica, nadie sabía nada de nada. Entonces todos los niños decían, no, pero que un robot haga... Y no teníamos cómo llevarlo a cabo. Entonces nos sentamos y fuimos discutiendo la idea hasta que dijimos, ok, quizás no podamos llevar a cabo esto este año, no podemos hacer el borrador electrónico porque todavía no estamos preparados. necesitamos primero trabajar un proceso en robótica. Entonces, ¿qué hicimos? Transformamos el taller en un taller de robótica y nos centramos en soluciones de problemas, ingeniería, cómo se trabaja esto, cómo se programa, y nos empezamos a involucrar con las tareas que queríamos realizar. Y de un borrador, que quizás no es algo que se haya conseguido este año, mutamos a que los niños aprendieran de robótica para eventualmente, cuando ya tengan esas habilidades adquiridas, poder lanzarnos a, bueno, hagamos el borrador electrónico. ¿Se entiende? Para eso, al lunes simulemos que recuerdo las fechas y que les dije la fecha del lunes, no me acuerdo ahora. Gracias, estaba haciendo tiempo para que el Cristian me dijera. El 17 les vamos a subir el formato de planificación. El formato de planificación, por lo menos de las experiencias de enriquecimiento, es muy sencillo. ¿Puedo dejar de hablar con esto? ¿Les molesta que hable con la...? Ya, que me molesta. Es que hablo moviendo las manos. Ya. Entonces, les vamos a entregar el formato, y el formato tiene dos partes. La primera es una muy técnica, que es decir, esta es mi idea de proyecto. Si esta es mi idea de proyecto, me vinculo con estas asignaturas o con esta asignatura y con estos elementos de la asignatura. Por ejemplo, el borrador era algo de matemática, algo de tecnología, y lo declaro, para yo saber con qué asignaturas estoy conversando. Porque recuerden que el objetivo del proyecto es yo poder conversar con el currículum y trabajarlo sin necesidad de estar en una pizarra. ¿Sí? Ya le doy la palabra, profe, la tengo en memoria. Ya, déjame terminar el punto. Entonces, se fundamenta desde la